Yep. 8 losses in their last 9 games. I want to talk some big picture. I got some crazy stats. Kevyn Adams, should we be on the GM getting fired watch? Coming up here in the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into this Friday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Hope everybody is ready to get their weekend started. You can check us out here on wherever you are listening to your podcast. We are available. You want to watch the show, you could do that as well. You head over to YouTube. You could hit the like and subscribe button. Watch us on your phone. Watch us on your TV if you want. You can make my nice Bills pullover that I got a little bit bigger if you want on your screen. We are free and available, of course, wherever you get your podcast. You can check us out on our text club. If you want to reach out, ask a question, or make a comment, or you just want news updates, you can do that heading over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres, the place to sign up for that. Here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Sneaky Joe DiBiase on today's show. A lot to get to. Talk some big picture stuff. The GM, should we be on him getting fired watch? Adams watch. We will talk about that. I also do want to get to why I actually was looking at some betting odds for the Sabres to make the playoffs. And I'm going to lay out for you, because I don't want to be all negative, all mad and down in the dumps, although I think this team has given everybody every right to be that way. I'm going to leave just a little bit of room at the end today for just a tiny bit of optimism. And part of that is attached to the odds for the Sabres to make the playoffs, which, by the way, I will tell you, they are better than the Bills' odds to win the Super Bowl. Might not mean anything to anybody. You might not feel great about the Bills' Super Bowl chances right now. It's kind of where I'm at, the way they've looked as of late. But Sabres are actually like a decent amount better chance to make the playoffs than the Bills are to win the Super Bowl. So there's that, I guess. That's a start for some optimism here on a Friday. After the loss to the Colorado Avalanche and some other results from around the league yesterday, the Sabres are now 6 points back of a playoff spot, dead last at 14 points in the Eastern Conference. And that is as far back as the Sabres have been to making the playoffs on November 14th than any season going back to 2018. So in the last 7 years, this is as far back as they've ever been. They were back 1 point in each of the last 2 seasons before this year. They were 3 points back the year they almost made it, 3 points back the year before that, 1 point back the year before that, and they were actually in a spot in 2018-19. They have not been further away than 6 points since the tank year. So there's another way to put it. 6 points back on November 14th. They have not been further away than that to making the playoffs on this day than any season in over a decade. The tank year is the last one that you have to go back for that. And in this game, it was not one that I had any expectation of the Sabres doing anything. In fact, it was almost impressive to me that they, by the way, start Alex Lyon last night, which was a surprise to me and a surprise to many. They go with Alex Lyon to start the game, and it did not last long. 2 goals by Colorado early on the first, I believe it was 4 shots of the game. Lindy makes the quick change. He pulls Lyon. He puts Luukkonen in, and all right, we get the goalie change, but you're still thinking, man, you're already down 2-0 to Colorado. Colorado was minus 400 coming into this game. Everybody was expecting them to dominate you. They were the #1 team in the NHL going in. They still are. The Sabres were one of the worst teams in the NHL going in. Still are. So 2-0, this is going to get ugly quick. Maybe it gets to 7-0 or something like that. And to the Sabres' credit, they fought back. They clawed back into it. They showed a little bit of fight, a little bit of life. And listen, they are not in a position where I think we should be awarding many moral victories to the Sabres. The only reason I'm willing to even do it a little bit here is because of all the injuries that they have sustained. So I'll do it just a little bit. Them fighting back to tie the game at 3. I mean, with 24 minutes to go in the game, you're tied 3-3 on the road after playing the night before against the best team in the National Hockey League with all the guys out that they have out. Like, that's a great job. It's a really great job by the Sabres. And they weren't necessarily the better team while they were clawing their way back, but there were some nice plays along the way. Bo Byram charging to the net and putting home a rebound. Tage able to kind of get it loose for him so that he could punch it in to get their first goal. Owen Power made an incredible play on Jordan Greenway's goal because the pass from Josh Doan was actually, go back and watch this goal. It's all Power. It's the pass by Doan is so far behind Owen Power that he blindly actually catches the pass with his backhand. It's supposed to go in front of him. Without looking, he throws his stick behind him and he catches it without looking, and then in one motion is able to flip the puck down low with a beautiful saucer pass to Jordan Greenway, who was able to just swing at it wildly, and it found its way into the net. So Power with a really great play there. Tage with a great one-timer. Nice cross-ice saucer pass by Isak Rosen. Like, on the goals they scored, they made some really nice plays. And then they couldn't keep it together. They couldn't hold through, and that was understandable. That was predictable. Martin Necas, Nathan McKinnon's allowed too much time behind the net, and he finds an open guy, and he's a great goal scorer. It's your 5-3 goal. It was basically over at that point. So you lost the game. We were expecting you to lose the game, but now we do have to deal with the consequences of that, which is that they are not picking up any points, and they are losing ground fast in the Eastern Conference. And if they are going to stop the bleeding, it's got to happen real soon. So that is kind of where we get to what's coming up next, and also whether it's deserved that they should make any move right now, and whether even if they did, whether that's the GM, whether that's the coach. I don't think it's a trade, but something like that would even spark this team. If there's enough talent on the roster right now, the game-to-game lineup without Zucker, without Dahlin, obviously, without Kulik, without Benson, if there's enough bodies out there that anybody could do more with it. That's a question, of course, about whether or not you should act right now. Coming up next, it's Detroit. And the Red Wings are a beatable team. And even though you're on the road, that's a beatable team that I think the Sabres, I'm going to probably pick them to win tomorrow night. And then you get 4 games at home, 2 of which, well, really, Chicago's actually having a better season than many anticipated. They've taken that step forward this year. They are actually in a playoff spot at the moment. The Sabres do play the only team in the league, though, that is worse than them right now, and that is Calgary. Calgary is a bad hockey team, last in the NHL. They get them at home. You get Chicago at home. Edmonton and Carolina will be tough, but those are both at home. Like, you have some opportunity coming up, but it's just whether or not they have the players to really take advantage of it. But if they're gonna have a season here, gotta get some points. Tread water is the way I've been putting it for a little while here. And every game they play, they are sinking a little further and further. We should come up with some sort of a game or gimmick that with the Sabres, the Sabre ship, and how much it's sinking, how far below the water they are. They're not all the way submerged right now, but they are. They're getting there. So last night, a 6-3 final against the Colorado Avalanche. Don't love that. Also, bet of the night didn't cash. No Victor Olofsson point. It's what we were looking for, which is kind of amazing because his line got the empty net goal at the end, and I was really hoping that was going to be the backdoor cover there. You get 6 goals from Colorado. Olofsson doesn't record a point. He's got a point per game almost so far this year, but them's the breaks. We're down to plus 7.4 units on the year, which is still very good, by the way. Not as good as it was a couple weeks ago, but still doing well. When we come back, should we be on Adams' watch? I'll tell you why maybe we should. That when we return here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Monarch. Monarch, let's be honest, most of us cannot even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth between 401ks, savings, and investments. It is easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that'll bring your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Helps you organize your accounts. You can track your spending, get a better handle on investments without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. You review everything with your partner. It's another option. See shared goals, make every financial decision together better. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools will make it a lot easier to understand where your money's going and how to make it work harder. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. You can use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. 6-3 final. Avalanche over the Sabres. 5-8-4. The Buffalo Sabres record. Colorado, by the way, 12-1-5. 6-0-2 at home. It's a dominant, great team. They're going to be my Stanley Cup pick almost every year going into it. And so far this year, they've given me no reason to believe they shouldn't still be my pick. All right, let's get to the general manager. And we're going to start more him than the coach because we have not really talked much about his job security so far this year, not since the season began. We obviously did a lot of that in the offseason. And you probably know my stance on it. It's very similar to what most people's stance on it is. It's unbelievable he's still the general manager and that he was given a 6th season to figure this thing out. I did some research today about how historic this is. A GM being employed this long without ever making the playoffs. Well, here's a couple of facts for you on that. At the moment, the only GM that has ever made it through 6 full seasons without making the playoffs in one stop is Doug MacLean. Former Sportsnet analyst, by the way, might be how you know him, but former general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets. He was Columbus's first general manager, so keep that in mind. He took over an expansion team in Columbus, but he never made the postseason. Never made the postseason. You look at what's going on in Detroit, that's the one other example. 6 seasons completed in Detroit, he's the one other. Steve Yzerman has never made the playoffs as the general manager of the Detroit Red Wings. So those two, 6 full seasons, have never done it. The most games as a GM in one place without making the postseason in NHL history. MacLean is number 1, 492 games as the Columbus GM without making the postseason. Steve Yzerman is number 2, and that streak is active. He is at 472. So within a couple of weeks, Yzerman, amazingly, because he was so good in Tampa and he's such a legend of the sport, Yzerman in a couple of weeks is going to set the record for the most games as a GM in one place without making the playoffs. He might make it this year and reset that and get off that list, but at the moment, he has not done it. Number 3 all time is Max McNabb, who was the GM of the Washington Capitals. He took over in the middle of their expansion year. So he took over an expansion team mid-season, and then he went 6 years after that, 5 years after that. He was the GM for 457 games and never made the postseason with Washington. He, by the way, went on to play or to be the GM for New Jersey in the 80s and never made the playoffs there. He actually has the record most games in general as a GM without ever making the postseason, like over 1,100, which is kind of nuts. And then Kevyn Adams, number 4. So pretty rare company. Adams has been the GM of the Buffalo Sabres for 401 games. He is one of only 4 GMs in NHL history that have been the GM for 400 plus games and not made the postseason with that team. Again, keep in mind though, MacLean, McNabb, these guys took over expansion teams, and Yzerman did do it with a previous team. So it all goes into the umbrella of it's unbelievable that this is still going. So while it, in another situation or circumstance, if we were talking about a GM on the hot seat that was in his 3rd year or even in his 4th year and began a year the way this season has began, which is well, we didn't really get a look at your plan. Your plan was, all right, let's bring in Michael Kesselring. We'll get rid of some scoring, but we're going to be tougher to play against. We're going to be better defensively. We really threw some more darts at our goalie position. If you were only in your third year as a GM and that was happening and all the guys left, Dahlin leaves the lineup and Zucker and all of them, then that guy in that hypothetical would, I think, would be getting the benefit of the doubt. Because, well, we should really wait to get a look at this. But with Adams, when you are in your sixth year, you just don't get the benefit of the doubt. There can be no assuming that it was going to work. There can be no, well, guys, if they all were all healthy, this would be happening. They would be in a spot. You can't assume that because we have way too much sample size that says, no, this guy's teams usually aren't going to be doing that. And especially when this GM's best team was built the polar opposite direction to the way this team is currently built. This team is built by defense and toughness, and his best team was offense and skill and speed. So should we be on Adams' watch? Because really none of this matters. All that matters at the end of the day is, what does Terry Pegula think? And we know the story. Adams and him are tight. They grew a relationship when Adams was first working in the organization more than a decade ago. And Pegula has been very committed to Adams. Now, the reasons why I want to be a little bit open to the idea that there could be a move. I'm not in, I got to remember off the top of my head how the DEFCON system works. I always forget off the top of my head. DEFCON 1. That's the worst. You know, that's nuclear war is imminent. I'm not at DEFCON 1 right now for GM Firewatch, Adams Watch. But I might be at DEFCON 3. I think it could happen. I'll even go to 2. DEFCON 2. We are nearing it. Here are some of the signals that you can pick up on to tell you, well, okay, maybe there is a chance. One, I'll take you back to the end of last season when it was widely reported that it's unknown. Adams' job was not 100% safe, that there was a possibility that we're going to be fired. Now, Adams then went to his press conference and gave more of that indication because he was asked about his job security. And basically his answer is, well, I haven't met with Terry yet. And what that implies is, in that moment, when he was asked that question end of the season, Adams didn't know that whether he was going to be back or not. He was. He laid out his plan to Terry Pegula. He sold Terry on it, and he was given another chance. Now, some of the whispers around the team in the last couple of months were that if this thing is off the rails early, changes are coming. So again, when that was kind of out there, that was not said, well, if everybody's gone, like Dahlin and all the other players, well, then maybe that isn't so true. We don't know. We don't know if there was a caveat to, if it's off the rails, changes are coming, unless you're missing all these pieces and then we probably won't do anything. I don't know. We don't know whether or not that's the case. So that's signal number 2, though, is that there were whispers that if there was a horrible start to the year, here come the changes. The third one, and this is probably the least valuable of the smoke signals right now, but I saw it yesterday. I just wanted to point it out here on the show. Matthew Barnaby, who, you know, he's not really, he's not a Buffalo insider. He played for the team, and he's connected to some former players, like Andrew Peters, Craig Revere, like some of these former players. They talked and they know people. Barnaby tweeted yesterday something that was very strange. He tweeted, "Sabres are in negotiations. Go get our guy!" Exclamation point, exclamation point. And then he sent the gif of Ted Lasso, who was pointing up at the believe sign. Sabres are in negotiations. What could that mean? Because I don't think they're making a trade right now. And I mean, there were some Tage Thompson, like rumors, like really rumors, like nothing concrete. That's not what that means. Is he talking about Brendan Shanahan? That was a thought I had because there have been more reports about how Shanahan wants to work in the league and how he would work here. He would be willing to take over the organization and take on the president of hockey ops job. And in the summer, it sounded like Terry Pegula didn't want to do that, but has that changed? Is he or is Shanahan more open to a GM job? Is it something to do with him? I don't really know. I don't know what it means, but it's just a kind of an odd tweet for this time of year. And it was the first thing I saw when I thought of it. So, all right, there's 3 things right there that should make you think it's worth watching. Not at DEFCON 1, but maybe we're at DEFCON 2, that Terry would be willing to make a change right now, even though they're missing pieces. Very tough to tell, though. All right, when we come back, here I'll try to sell you on why it's not the worst bet in the world, Sabres to make the playoffs right now, given the odds you could get it at. That when we return here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by DripDrop. When you're hydrated, everything just works better. Your focus, your energy, your mood, even your skin. That's why you got to use DripDrop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps you running at full power, no matter what your day looks like. DripDrop is not your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of the top college and pro teams. If you've liked using DripDrop as part of your daily routine, you mix a packet in the morning, gym, before your midday slump. It actually tastes amazing. Your go-to flavor, and it becomes a secret weapon for staying sharp and energized through long days. Right now, DripDrop's offering Locked On Sabres listeners 20% off your first order. Just go to dripdrop.com, use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. Dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Stock up now. Keep your body and mind performing at the best with DripDrop. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is also presented by Gametime. We got a home stretch coming up. Listen, when the team is not performing, the one benefit you get is that tickets are pretty cheap. And nowhere are they going to be more cheap than at Gametime, where you can find a bunch of great deals. Zone deals is a way to do that. You pick the section, and Gametime will find the best price for you. And with hockey season officially here, no waiting in queues, surprise fees. You're going to know what you're paying right at the start. Prices that'll jump right before checkout are the worst. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is go watch your team. Gametime, NHL tickets, fast, easy, and stress-free. Again, the no hidden fees at checkout. I love when you're scrolling through the app and you can get an exact look at what your seat is going to look like and what the angle is going to be. I actually used it for tickets in Miami to Buffalo, Miami last week. And the other thing I liked about it is when you're looking at that picture of what you're going to be seeing, it showed you whether or not you'll be in the shade. Another nice feature. Obviously, that's not a hockey thing, but if you're maybe traveling around, going to some football games, that's a good feature as well. So check out Gametime and take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. It's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, Stinky Joe DiBiase. Detroit tomorrow night. Is there any hope? Here is the best defense I'll make for why Sabres plus 650 to make the playoffs is maybe not the worst bet in the world. I would like it more if it was a little bit higher, and I might want to wait until they jump up a little bit, but it's tough because you don't know when they might actually get a couple of wins in here. 6 points. Listen, 6 points. It's early enough where you could get that back to 2 in just a week's time, and then you could have a season here. The thing that would hold you back is the roster at the moment. But here's what I would want to lay out. Adams does get fired. And if that were to happen, I would like the Sabres playoff odds given where they're at. So it kind of comes down to whether you actually believe they'll make a change at GM. And the reason that I would like their odds, if that were to happen, is if it was Shanahan or it was Jarmo Kekalainen, who I think is more likely because he's already in the organization. I think that the change made early in the season This is kind of how other teams usually operate. I know, tough assuming the Sabres will do that. But how other teams usually operate is if they get off to a really slow start, when they fire a guy, what they do is they change and they bring in the type of coach or the type of mentality that is, it's early enough. We got to do whatever it takes to get this season in the right direction. And sometimes it can be trades. Sometimes it can mean a coach. And I'm not telling you that a guy they bring in would be better than Lindy Ruff if Jarmo wanted his own guy. John Tortorella is a name that you think of right away because Jarmo's done that before. Jarmo, when he was in Columbus, fired a coach very early on in the season and hired John Tortorella, and the ship got righted. And they did figure it out because with a guy like Torts, there is a timeline. There is a early part of the relationship where you do get results. Eventually it fizzles and it burns out and it ends maybe fiery, explosively. But early, you do get positive results. The other thing is we will see Sabre players return. I don't know about Dahlin, and that is the toughest part. Like, really, I guess the bet is only good if you think Dahlin is going to come back at some point, and you just don't know that. But Benson is very important to this team. I think you've really seen this team miss him when he's out. The power play, especially for that, and on the top line. I think Tage has looked lost at times without Benson. Benson is to come back. And while Zucker and Kulik are a longer timeline, they will be back eventually. So it's more a conversation, though, about the number, about the odds. Plus 650 just to get in. You know, it's not so far gone yet that I wouldn't want to consider that. I'm not telling you it's amazing and a lock and you got to go get it. I'm just saying monitor it because the odds are pretty long for this early on in the season. It's hard to get a price that good on any team. And I would almost consider that on any team. Teams can turn it around. It happens all the time. St. Louis did it on January 1st, 7 years ago. And I'm not saying the Sabres are going to win the cup, but that my reason for hope is that basically they could make changes and that could give you a season. I'll tell you this, though. If I knew for sure today that Kevyn Adams was definitely going to be employed by this team the rest of the season, then I wouldn't take the bet. That's where I'm at. All right, Sabres and Red Wings tomorrow. We will talk to you on this weekend. We will talk to you during this weekend because I want to get a couple of thoughts in on the Red Wings game after it happens because I think when the season is this close to being lost, I want to get as much in as we can before we could be back to meaningless games by post-Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you tomorrow. You want more hockey talk? Be sure to check out Locked On NHL Game Night. That is available wherever you get your podcast. You can watch that show along on YouTube as well. And we'll talk to you this weekend here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.